Lore of the Old World, Chapter 6, The Land of Chivalry. Bretonnia is the land of chivalry. Its vast armies are without doubt among the greatest in the world, and its warriors, be they noble or peasant, are possessed of an unshakable faith in the righteousness of their cause. If there could be but a single bastion in the world where the ideals of honour and goodness still exist, then surely it would be the kingdom of Bretonnia. Long before the coming of Sigmar, humans settled the lands between the Grey Mountains and the Great Ocean. But it was not until the arrival of the warlike Bretonnia tribe that a true nation was born. The Bretonii, with their own strange customs and notions, rejected Sigmar's offers of alliance, remaining divided for centuries into numerous petty fiefdoms. These battled constantly for survival against rampaging orcs from the mountains, beastmen raiders from the forests, and undead invaders from the sea. Fortunately, a young knight would rise and save his people from annihilation. In the year 976 of the imperial calendar, Gilles Le Breton, Duke of Bastogne, rode to the relief of a neighbouring fiefdom. Resting his army upon the banks of a lake, an ethereal woman appeared before him rising from the waters. Sensing her goodness, Gilles knelt and asked her to bless his banner and his army. The fey woman bade Gilles drink from her grail, a drinking vessel that granted those who drank from it immortality. So blessed, Gilles and his followers became the first knights of the Grail, and, one by one, the dukes of Bretonnia gathered to his banner. By the end of the century, Bretonnia had been liberated from its foes, and the duke elevated Gilles to the rank of High King of the realm. Under his reign, Bretonnia prospered as never before. In the long years before the time of Gilles, the Bretonnia tribes worshipped a host of different gods. Many of these were similar to those revered by the tribes to the east, such as Mor, the grim god of death, or the forest god Tal, albeit under different names. In the centuries since the time of Gilles, these gods have been largely replaced by the worship of the Lady of the Lake. The Lady is the patron god of Bretonnia. Her virtues are chivalry and honour. It is the eternal quest of all knights to seek her out, earn her blessing, and drink from the Grail. Though she has no priests or acolytes, her emissaries are the Fey Enchantress and the Grail damsels that serve under her. Possessed of potent magical abilities, the Fey Enchantress is considered the living embodiment of the Lady, and stands at the side of the king, guiding him in all things. Likewise, Grail damsels guide the knights of Bretonnia on their quests, often accompanying them to war and lending their magical power to their armies in battle. Foreigners have been known to scoff at the notion of some magical aquatic woman protecting Bretonnian knights from harm, at least until they have seen with their own eyes the power of the Lady turn aside arrows before they could strike home. The blessings of the Lady, and the longevity of Bretonnia's rulers, have been both a blessing and a curse for its people. Though they enjoy great stability and safety, the realm has become trapped in time, its dukes and kings eschewing the technical advances of neighbouring lands to remain true to the ideals of chivalry and knighthood. Yet despite the disadvantages of stagnant technology and rigid codes of chivalry, the armies of Bretonnia are still a force to be reckoned with. The blessings of the Lady of the Lake grants her knights protection against all manner of harm, whilst filling their hearts with determination and grace, making them among the most formidable warriors in the world. It is just as well Bretonnia's armies are so strong, for the history of Bretonnia is one of constant war against enemies from without, greedy aggressors who would violate the realm, intent on plunder and conquest, and against enemies from within, the debased children of the dark gods who slay and burn in the name of their evil patrons. But the most bitter of all wars are those where duke fights against duke and knight fights against knight. Fostered by mistrust, vain pride, betrayal, lust, and above all greed, this internecine strife has been the curse of Bretonnia more than any enemy. Only the rule of a strong monarch can stop the bickering amongst the dukes, settle their quarrels, and direct the energy of a united Bretonnia against its real enemies. When this happens, the nation's knightly armies ride out on noble crusades, whether within the borders of the realm or to far-off lands. The might of Bretonnia's armies lies in its many ranks of knights, organised by strict feudal hierarchy. These battle-tempered warriors ride to war upon the finest of chargers, intelligent, fiery and strong animals of heroic proportions, clad in baroque suits of armour and overlaid with rich liveries emblazoned with their heraldic devices. A knight's weapon of choice is the lance, with which much time is spent training in the joust. In battle, the knights of Bretonnia fight in wedge-shaped lance formations, their charges piercing deep into the ranks of the enemy like the weapon for which they are named pierces flesh, capable of breaking apart even the legendary impenetrable battle lines of the dwarves. The bulk of a Bretonnian army is made up of innumerable feudal peasants. By the standards of the other lands, these peasants live a squalid existence, yet they revere their rulers as protectors of the realm and paragons of bravery and honour. Thus, when their lord calls, they eagerly take up arms. Peasant bowmen are the most numerous, the bow being a common hunting tool for the people of Bretonnia, and one many learn to use from a young age. Others, should they prove strong and capable enough, might find a place among their lord's men-at-arms, where they form solid blocks of infantry armed with heavy pole arms. Serving their lord in such a way is an honour not soon forgotten by those that survive. Throughout the centuries, vast hosts of knights have crossed the mountains that border fair Bretonnia into the Empire, Estalia, Tilia, the Border Princes and the Badlands. Others have embarked upon great galleons that have carried the warriors and their steeds into the faraway lands of Norcia, Araby, Albion and even the mysterious Land of the Dead. The purpose of such crusades is simple: to crush the enemies of Bretonnia before they can muster upon her border and threaten the humble existence of the peasants en masse. In the burning heat of the Nehakarian desert, gallant knights have done battle with the undying legions of the Tomb Kings, glorious formations of horsemen crashing through endless regiments of skeletal soldiers until the Crusaders' bright liveries were entirely obscured by powdered bone and the dust of ages. Entire orc and goblin tribes have been slaughtered by the crusading Bretonnians, without mercy, the crushing charges of galloping horses and heavy lance more than enough to slay the enemy elite before the rank and file is driven into the sea. Monumental Bretonnian fortresses have been built in these foreign lands in order to control remote provinces in the name of the king, but even the devout and ferocious knights of Bretonnia cannot be everywhere at once. History has proved time and time again the truth of the ancient Bretonnian adage, the realm and the king are one. Truly the lands have withered and suffered under the rule of corrupt or weak rulers. The current ruler of Bretonnia is Louen Orc-Slayer, so named for his crusade to rid his nation of orc and goblin tribes. Hailed as the greatest king since Gilles Le Breton himself, Louen has ruled for almost 80 years, thanks to the longevity imparted to him by the Grail. An exceptional warrior and wise king, he rules from his court in the dukedom of Baston to maintain the stability of his kingdom. In recent years, the wars plaguing the empire have spilled over to the eastern parts of Bretonnia, forcing Louen to see off brigand armies and ambitious imperial nobles. Though the king sees the empire's woes as very much an internal problem, he has entertained ambassadors from each of the major claimants to the imperial throne, with some of his dukes even going so far as to campaign in the empire. More often than not, Louen's attentions are focused on his western shores and the realms to the south. Though the neighbouring nation of Estalia enjoys largely good relations with Bretonnia, the two kingdoms periodically fighting border skirmishes, it is the beastmen, orcs and undead who often raid from this direction and must be seen off by knightly armies. The king has even shown an interest in bringing stability to the border princes, so it might act as a buffer against the Badlands and hostile realms further south, though, so far, Louen has been thwarted in his ambitions beyond a handful of exiled knights laying claim to parts of this blighted region.